Welcome back, day 105. I couldn't make it yesterday. We had lessons. We've started lessons now for our group that is getting towards their finals. We've got a group doing their finals, and we've got a group that are getting closer. And it was for those students. We've got Friday night lessons now, so that's my excuse. Let's just go live on Instagram. We live? Yes, we are. Okay, so today, welcome to day 105, the Phoenix Way Mini Live Challenge. Before we dive into today's topic, which is why the heels need the toes and the toes need the heels. Before we dive into today's topic, I'd like to reflect for a moment. I want you to think about the relationship between the heels and the toes in a hoof. What have you noticed about the way your horse's hooves respond to trimming, their environment, growth? What happens when you've got the whole foot on the ground? What happens when you don't have the whole foot on the ground? Particularly the toes. We'll have the heels on the ground all the time, but it's the toes that become an issue. And again, subject to what the human being feels like, right? So I want you to take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments. I can see you all turning up already. And tell me if you've noticed a change in how your horse moves or behaves once they've had their feet properly balanced. What happened maybe before when you had toes removed? Was it always roses, or were there issues? What happened with the growth? How often did you have them trimmed? Did you see any issues there? What's your experience? What's your experience with the trimming cycle, maintaining that hoof balance? Well, a lot of you didn't really think about hoof balance. To this day, I am still quite shocked that when we watch people trim, they rarely look critically at balance. And that's what we're going to talk about. We need to talk about critical balance in hoof care because it's very important and it's often overlooked because that's what's determining what's going on inside the hoof. And unless we get on top of this, we're going to have P3. We are having P3 rotating all over the place. That relationship between the heels and the toes is crucial. And when we talk about hoof health, we cannot in any way separate the two, but people do it all the time. And modern hoof care goes hard on the toes and not so on the heels. But the heels need the toes to be in the right position and the toes need the heels to be in the right position. Because if either are out, that causes a problem with that balance. And then we end up disrupting that natural feedback mechanisms within the hoof, leading to a knock-on effect, a massive chain reaction of problems that are usually blamed on grass and diet, when in fact they're caused by poor hoof care, exacerbated by diet, not caused by diet. So that's what I want to look at today, and we're going to break that down. We are live. Laurie's joined us. River seems to be weight bearing on his forward quarters and the sole at the toe, which is quite thick. Okay, now that's a really great observation because the sole is often thicker on the hoof wall than it is at the quarters, but the heels, they're just where they need to be. They are super strong. So anyway, let's say hello to people that are here on YouTube and Facebook. Teresa's here. Hello, my darling. Suzanne, have you taken those photographs yet? Come on, bring it on. Suzanne's here. Hello, with a marigold hand. Meda's here. I made it today. Fantastic. Hello, Phoenix friend, says Dawn Lim. Angela's here. Hello. Rodeo Cowgirl. So glad I could make a live. Hello from Canada. Posted about my mini Sunny. Hello. Good to see you. I had a mini Sunny. My lovely mini Sunny. Angela says, heels to toes, you complete me. Dawn says, how's your mum, Lindsay? She's okay. She's okay. We took her to the doctors on Thursday. Was Thursday, wasn't it? And all her vitals are really good. She's getting better. She's quite weak, but she's up every day, putting on her fancy earrings and her necklace, and She's getting up. The girls are here this weekend at Georgia and Asher, so that's lovely. They're with her at the moment, cooking dinner, and they're spending a bit of time. It's Mother's Day on tomorrow, so that's why they're here. And yeah, it's really, really nice. She's getting better. She's got a cough, but it's getting there. We're definitely getting there. The doctor was pleased. I have much more mobile. You're more. The horse is more mobile. Angie says hello with her marigold hand. Rings even out. They were wonky and wavy before, and are less obvious visually and by feel. Oh my goodness, rings! Don't get me on the rings. Nikki's here. Says hello. Hello, Nikki. Karen's here. Hello from Grey Wales. Is it? It's been warm here today. Not that helps you, of course. Pia, hello. Patricia's here. Hi, Patty. It's good to see you. Amar is here. Hello, everyone. Hello, all. Learning so much. Thank you. Good. I'm glad. Charlotte Bamber has joined us. Don't think we've heard that name before. Good to meet you. It's very, very good to meet you. She joined us on Instagram. Okay. So let's talk about the importance of toes and heels working together. And I don't think I ever really hear about people talking about this. Hooves were designed over a very, very long time, 55 million years, to be balanced structures. Each part works in harmony with the other, and it's all there to support the horse and respond to the environment and to work really well to get them away from predators, to get them to where they need to eat, to get them to where they need to drink, to get them to so that they can work properly when they reproduce. They are an integral part of their lives, of course. The moment they start going wrong, then really the stress involved for a horse not being able to instinctively get away when they need to, etc., because their feet are hurting is crazy. And so keeping that internal balance structure is so important. And unfortunately, in the domestic world, that internal balance goes off so easily. In fact, only this morning I was having a call with a couple in Australia who were so shocked that this horse that they're rehabbing, where they're getting P3 in the right position, how the heels had just rocketed up in 10 days. They couldn't believe it. Because you're told, aren't you, that the hoof grows about 1 centimeter a month, but when you have growth rates going awry because then the foot is not working together, it's starting to work independently of each other, then forced independence, then that's the hoof capsule, then you start to have real issues with growth rates. And this isn't recognized. There are all sorts of excuses for why we have hoof rings. It's not recognized that and of course, who is it not recognized by? By the people who take toes off. They don't recognize the fact that the moment that you start doing that regularly, you're going to affect that biology and feedback mechanism in the hoof. The heels and toes should not be independent of each other. They are very much connected. And I'm not just saying they're connected because we've got a hoof capsule there. They actually do depend on each other for the hoof to function correctly. The heels rely on the toes so that they can keep them in check. That toe pillar forms an anchor, if you like, of the hoof. And if we take too much of that away, or you trim it incorrectly, you're going to lose not only the balance point, which is imperative for the hard sole plane, so that you can work out how much depth you've got at the toe, and so that you're not taking too much away. And it's also incredibly important that the toe pillar isn't removed, because the heels will simply go out of check because they've got nothing to counter it. Now, I'm not going to draw a diagram or show this tonight because I haven't got time, but perhaps you'd like to ask me that on a live next week and I'll show you what I mean. If you take the toe away and you've got the heel here, so that toe is like this. I'm looking at underneath the foot, right? I'm looking down on the foot from the side, and we've got my heels in play, but I can see that the toe is doing this. So this is balanced. The heels are balanced to the sole, and as this grows, and they grow up and underrun, as this is growing, this cannot grow because it's sole deep enough and fast enough to keep in balance with the heels. And certainly this wall can't, because it's not even in the picture. So consequently, what happens to that? This has got nothing to keep it in check, and the plane changes. As it comes up, the plane keeps changing. And that plane changing all the time is what's moving P3 inside. And it's happening constantly with horses, and specifically so with horses who have their toes removed. I don't care what anybody tells you. It is a biological fact that that is what happens. And of course, the toes rely on the heels, because if you don't have the heels back to where they're meant to be, the toe can be too long. If you've got the heels too underrun, then the toe is the balance for the toe and the heel is going to be too far under the horse's foot. The heels need to be back to where they need to be. But if you've left your heels unbalanced, how do you check the dorsopalmar balance from heel to toe? All of the trimming, when you're trimming to the hard sole plane, is all about balance. It's critical balance, internal balance, which we get from following Mother Nature's guide, which is obviously put there for you, very obvious. But when you start taking all of this into your own hands and you start thinking, well, I just leave the heels just a bit longer, they become underrun, I'll just chop off a little bit more toe because it looks like it's got stretch, and I'm really worried about lever forces. For those of you in the Phoenix group, please go and read Deborah Norris's preliminary write-up that she's been doing on lever forces, because it's excellent, and why it doesn't hurt laminae. When you have those issues where you haven't got the toe and you've got the heel, or you've not got them all balanced correctly, then you're all over the place, and the function of the foot is affected. If you've got the heels too high and you're taking away toe, obviously the angle of the hoof, the angle of P3 is going to change, because it's that plane is changing all the time. That's going to affect movement, and it's going to affect biomechanics. And I really do honestly believe that people think that it is okay, that it is not going to affect the horse's feet, but or movement, etc. But it absolutely does. When we take the toes too much, constantly taking the toes too much, we disrupt the feedback mechanisms in the hoof that help it respond to the environment. The hoof has got to know to keep growing. It's got those horn tubules, those keratinocytes, they've got to keep on forming. They've got to keep doing that so that the hoof keeps forming. And that's important for the epidermal laminae as well. All of that is all an integral part of what must happen evenly throughout the foot as an equilibrium for the growth rates around the foot. You've got papillae in the sole. Each one's responsible for a horn tubule in the sole. And you've got papillae in the coronary, or in the corium of the sole of P3. You've got papillae that are sat in the sockets in the coronary groove, and they are responsible, each one, for a horn tubule. And if those aren't in contact with the ground, if the horn tubules of the wall aren't in contact with the ground, then they will not get stimulated, or it will not stimulate proper horn growth further up where the papillae are. So if that toe wall is no longer on the ground, these feedback loops are heavily compromised. And that leads to growth disparity between the hoof capsules. Slower toe growth because the hoof isn't receiving the necessary signals anymore at the front. And then the heels then become, as I just mentioned, harder to manage because the balance point is lost and it hasn't got this to keep this in check. They go in at the same time. When that's gone, this is the only one that's going, and that keeps changing that plane. It might appear complex to think about. It's actually really very, very simple. And unfortunately, when we're rehabbing horses who nearly always have had their toes taken off, because our main rehab is rotation, the toe isn't there. We bring the heel down and the toe is still going up in the air. And it's a real massive problem, just like it was for the ladies that I was talking to this morning, who were shocked that the heels in 10 days were a whole centimeter bigger than they were 10 days before, or coming up to. They couldn't believe it. But there's no checkpoint, you see. There's nothing to stop those heels from doing what they do. So it's a real problem, and it's something that is really not thought about. And I wonder if back in the day it was really not considered important because of the shoes being put on. But now that we have got a huge amount of people in the world going barefoot, we see, I have to tell you, so many more probably horses, I think, really, that we see, the ones that are heavily compromised, with all their toes removed. And it wasn't removed because it was a necessity. It never is. It's removed because people don't like the look of that foot that's now beginning to distort, and they're trying to change the angle so that they can chase the hoof past an axis. So it's a real problem. And the result of that is that if you then therefore don't trim on short trim cycles, you're going to get into massive problems. So when you hear people talk about having to trim in short trim cycles, they're right. They do. Because if they are taking toes away and they leave those feet for 6 weeks, that will be a huge nightmare for the horse. P3 will be in a very compromised position. The foot will begin to compact at the back of the foot. That is the most common thing that happens, of course. And all of those issues which I've just mentioned come into play. Because of all of those issues that I've just mentioned, all of that comes into play. This internal distortion in the foot is a massive problem. When we've got normal, good feet with horses that are moving around outside, they're not kept in stables, and we trim them to the hard sole plane and we balance them correctly so they're properly internally balanced, so they're not getting any stretch, P3 is in the right position, or guided by something that is coming from the bottom of the horse's, internal structures, the P3. If we follow that, you can't go wrong. And you can trim every 6 weeks. It's absolutely fine. There's not a problem with it whatsoever. But if you take toes away, you absolutely cannot go 6 weeks. And people say, oh, you have to trim on shorter cycles. You do. You do, but you shouldn't have to, because horses should be able to keep their feet relatively in balance in 6 weeks. It shouldn't be a problem at all. But if you're taking that toe off, those heels are going to go way out of whack very quickly. The balance point is lost and that toe pillar's gone. And that becomes a constant chase. Oh, I'm sweating, I'm a bit hot. The trimming becomes a constant chase for the right balance. And I know this because it's what I deal with on a daily basis. This is what and when we're rehabbing these horses, you have to have quite a stern conversation with the owners. And you might be some of the ones that are going through this at the moment, because you can't take your eye off the ball. You can't take your eye off the heels, because as soon as you do, whoop, that horse's foot is distorted. When they're taking the toes, you easily lose sole depth, because the more you trim in correctly all around that toe region, the more you risk sole depth, because you've got no balance point now of horn, of wall, that is needed that pillar of support which is needed from the heels. P3 is in danger of rotating all the time. And like I've said many times, if you x-rayed all the horses in the world, domestic horses in the world, you'd find that the majority would have some form of rotation, which is crazy to think about, isn't it? And so therefore the foot becomes less functional. Horses get footsore, they get put in shoes, the problem just perpetuates. It's just a dreadful issue that horses are suffering with. Because as that sole depth decreases, that hoof is going to struggle. It's going to struggle to bear weight properly. And those laminitis-like symptoms often appear as a result of that imbalance. And you will get horses that are hugely compromised metabolically and horses that are not compromised metabolically, all suffering from issues with their feet simply because the person trimming them just was inconsistent with their with the way that they trimmed, and consistently was removing the toe, and the heels were just going bonkers. Inconsistent trim cycles, there's another one. When you trim correctly, like I said, you can go longer and longer. In fact, the horse just looks after their own feet. They just keep their feet balanced. As long as you've got these horses moving around, mooching around constantly, their feet pretty much keep in balance. I've got horses that I've owned for years and years and years. I mean, years. And I go and look at their feet often, and sometimes there's a bit to trim, bit of bars, etc. But rarely do they ever go out of balance. In fact, it's just something that I just don't see, because these animals have everything on the ground. They got the toe on the ground. They got the heels on the ground. They may not move enough at times so that their quarters end up being in play as well. So they need a proper, that you need to go back to the hard sole plane. But balance wise, P3 is not doing this the whole time in their feet. So in order for us to keep the hoof from going out of balance, if you're taking the toe off, you're going to have to trim in short trim cycles. There's no, you have got no choice. Otherwise, that horse is going to have problems. And if you don't follow that natural form, we're ending up chasing the balance every time. And that hoof is just going to become compromised. And this imperfect cycle of trimming just completely exacerbates the problem that these horses have, which gives us this misconception of laminitis, because the horse starts to slow down, he starts to get footy, he starts to lie down more, and the horse shows these signs. Some of them are metabolic, but not all of them. Many aren't. And the first thing people think of is that it has to be the diet. Now, don't get me wrong, a metabolic horse is going to suffer because they are already having issues internally. But it's very, very easy for their feet, especially horses that are kept on grass, soft ground, for their feet to go out of whack quite quickly, because it's easy for us to think, oh, well, when did I trim? Oh, I trimmed. I'm sure I trimmed. When did I? Didn't put it in the diary. Oh, I must have trimmed 3 weeks ago. And then actually you trimmed 6 weeks ago. And then the next thing you see is you go and look at your horse and you think, wow, that doesn't look right, because the horse has gone out of balance, because they were on soft ground. Their feet weren't trimmed just correctly. And so you've got this inconsistency, this imperfect cycle going on. And I think we've proven over and over again that even the horses, that B3 rotation is all to do with internal balance, which is to do with trimming the hoof capsule. I mean, why is it so difficult to comprehend that? I don't understand why it's so difficult. But I guess when you're the ones dealing with it, you don't want to believe it's that. You want to believe it's something else. If we've got poor trimming, which is going to lead to incorrect pressure in different parts of the foot and imbalance, the result is going to be pain and movement issues. Always, it's going to be that. Okay, let's have a look. Kathy Yorkshire Lass is here. Lila's just turned up. Levayan is here. Andre. Let's have a look what people have said. Hello. Oh gosh, there's so many people now. Yeah, thank you. Mum is definitely feeling better. Melanie's here. Hello, all. Dawn Jackson's here. Hello, my darling. Nikki says Rico doesn't have rings anymore, although it seems that the rings make it easier to see balance. Kind of ironic because we don't want them, but they come in handy sometimes. Those rings are not just, but I think people always think that they're there because they are telling you there's a diet issue. But look on, think on. Is that really what they're always telling you? Is that what they're telling you? Or are they telling you that that horse is getting a little bit of distress with its balance? The moment that you get on top of the balance, you watch what happens to the rings. It's just something to think about. Why would the bars only grow fast? Well, that's common in horses that have a little bit more of a bowl effect in the back of their foot and a little bit more concavity. And they're not always on ground that is going to exfoliate the bars, right? So the bars will just keep growing. There's horn, it's wall, and it needs a lot of it. As you've probably guessed, when you're trying to trim the bars down, they're quite tough. So that horn, that extension of the hoof wall, needs a lot of stimulation and exfoliation to stop them from becoming overgrown. Well, how many horses are usually get that? Not very many. And if the on top of that, if the bars aren't trimmed correctly at the trim, then they can be even longer the next time you come to look at them, and you think, crikey, they've grown up. And also because they're in that bowl, like in cobby feet, how they appear to grow so big so quickly, and a lot of the times that's because people aren't taking them down enough, is because it's a bit deep. It needs, and so they need to go over a lot of undulating ground to make sure that that is kept honed down to the sole plane. It makes sense, doesn't it? When you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, of course. Jeanette's here. Hi, a bit late. Anne's here from Stratford in Canada. Tara says true balance is only found when heels and toes are on the exact same plane of the hoof. It's impossible to achieve this without following the true hard sole plane. It's impossible. It is impossible. It really is. You are guessing. Toya's here. Hello. Tara, remember to like this live. She says, everybody give it a thumbs up wherever you are. We're on Instagram. You're on Facebook. You're on YouTube. Please do give us a like. It's not bullshit. It's boringly simple. It's BS. Alex is here. Hi, Lindsay. Hi, Alex. Good evening. Just made it, says Celia. Amar says, Marshall says, I must remember that. Marshall says, I'm so excited to be trimming a horse that was kept with high heels in the rear with a dubbed toe. Looking forward to seeing his progress now that he is at the HSP. You got to, if there's no toe in play, Marshall, you got to go back regularly and check those heels, right? Patty says we're in TPW rehab and do not cut toes, but they reach the point where they break and by mistake because they are now going out that way because you've got a big lamella wedge. I won't have time to read all of that, but I will come back and have a read of it later. So there's a big lamella wedge. Then the horse's feet weren't meant to be like that. But if we keep taking it off all the time, and we dump the horse on their sole all the time, then we've got a really big issue with that. If you've got a horse that we're trying to rehab and the toe is like going up in the air, we can do something about that, especially if they can't go into hoof boots. You can reduce that amount coming back. That's not toe chopping. That's just, you are, but that's removing that excess that is actually going to, for us to wait for it to come this way, it's going to be over here. Yeah, it's going to be like 3 feet long. That's not what we want, obviously. And in most of the cases when we're doing these rehabs, Patty, these horses have cracks already in their feet. They're cracking at the quarters. They're cracking towards the toe at the toe quarters. So when that horn grows longer, it snaps. It just breaks off. But the foot is getting ready for that. And that's just part of rehab. Some do, some don't. It just depends. After 1 year trimming 2 horses, it's only just now that I'm removing the same amount of heel as toe. Very satisfying. Perfect. Wonderful. But look how long that took. Lydia's here. Hi, everyone. Tabianca does not have any more rings, only at the bottom and the old ones. Good. They're growing out. That's absolutely brilliant. Says, mind blown again. Thank you. Yes. You see, got to just think about this. And if you come to one of the lives and you remind me next week, I will show you an example of what I'm talking about and how the heels need the toe. So what's the problem? The problem is subjective hoof care, right? It's one of the most frustrating things we see in hoof care today, and we see people justifying it all over Facebook constantly. They're subjective trimming approaches, especially when they are focusing on aesthetics and arbitrary angles. It makes it look good. It makes it sound good. When a foot looks pretty, I hear people say it to me all the time. Oh, that looks better. You're like, oh, you're not going for looks now, are you? I mean, a hoof looks fantastic. It's beautiful and amazing when it's healthy, but you can't make it healthy if you're being subjective and trimming it incorrectly. Hoof care professionals, providers, they often work, therefore, on that appearance, don't they? Rather than the hoof's natural internal biomechanics and function. They will give you all the lip service and the word salad telling you they are, but they're not. The moment anybody is leaving heels, taking toes, not removing enough bar, you know damn well that they are not trimming to Mother Nature's parameters. And it might sound trite to some, but the horse is giving it you there on a plate, literally going, that's easy. All you have to do is follow that. If you're trimming to match the ideal angle of the hoof pastern axis without considering the balance, the internal balance, you are going to throw it off. That toe chopping that is persistent, which is often done for aesthetics, often done because of excuses of lever forces, which we've proven don't exist. That removal of the toe pillar, some people don't even think there's a toe pillar. All right, okay then. All of that weakens the overall structure of the hoof, and that leads to compaction at the heels, losing sole depth at the toe, and further rotation of P3. You're leading yourself into a situation all the time where you are constantly going to end up chasing balance because the heels and the toe need each other. And if you are unable to restore that natural hoof function because those fundamentals aren't being respected, you got to be back there every 2 to 3 weeks because that foot will go out of balance, and then all hell's let loose. You've got rotation, you've got damage in the hoof. You're already getting damage anyway because that pressure through the sole is putting direct pressure through to the tip of P3. Who wants to do that? That's a mad thing to do. And then when the horse goes sore, the horse gets footsore, the horse has problems, the horse starts to have issues and et cetera, et cetera. Nobody looks at the balance. Nobody blames that. Everybody blames everything else. Now, everything else may have exacerbated it, but I tell you something, if every horse on this planet was balanced correctly, we wouldn't have these issues. Laminitis would be eradicated. So what do we have to do? Well, we have to return it to natural balance. It's a simple solution. And it's just so frustrating. You just respect the natural hoof balance. You don't have to go, ooh, looks like it needs its toe. No, what are you doing? Get off the rasp and the nippers. Don't you dare touch that horse's toe. The hoof is amazing. It's a self-regulating system, folks. It knows what it needs. If we remove excess material properly and we respect the hard sole plane properly, those people who say that they trim it and it never worked, well, then you weren't doing it properly, then were you? The hoof will self-correct itself over time. You start with the heels. The heels should be trimmed to support the foot and to be balanced correctly. You have to maintain that good heel depth. You don't want those heels popping up and down all the time. They are going to be your starting point with balance. And once you've got the heels in the right place and you've got the toe pillar in the right place, let me just let my cats in because they're going to keep me out. Once you've got the heels in the right place and the toe pillar there, which is vital for maintaining that balance of the foot. When you've left it intact and the hoof is trimmed with respect to the HSP, which we've now found at the heels, we help the hoof maintain proper vertical depth and proper growth rates, which are in equilibrium with the whole hoof capsule. And then you can trim in natural cycles. Instead of these constant chasing and constant adjustments based on aesthetic goals, you end up trimming for function, not aesthetics. You've got balance in mind all the time. Internal balance is in your mind all the time. And if you try and affect that, or if you try and go, oh, no, doesn't look right, but take toe off, you are affecting that. You are adjusting that based on arbitrary angles, looks, aesthetics, rather than what the hoof needs, rather than nature of the hoof. Okay, Roman's here, Carlos is here, Lila is here, Laura is here on Instagram. So before I do a takeaway, let's just have a quick look. And Tyree is here. Hi, Lindsay. Rona's here too. Hello. Okay, so what's the takeaway? The takeaway of this mini life challenge is the relationship between the heels and the toes is critical. I cannot impress upon you how critical it is, guys, for proper hoof health. When one is disrupted, the other suffers. To maintain balance and avoid common issues like P3 rotation and laminitis-like symptoms, we must trim with respect to the natural hoof and internal balance, not based on subjective angles or arbitrary trimming practices. Reflect on your current trimming approach. Do you think that your foot is the horse's foot is naturally balanced? Have the toes been removed and now you're chasing those heels constantly and it's a complete nightmare trying to keep on top of that? You can't let it go until you eventually have toe wall on the ground, and no matter how much you take it off, it's not going to make it come back. What's one adjustment do you think you can make that will focus on the function of the hoof rather than its appearance? Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's continue to support each other in the Phoenix group, etc., and on the page. You will see a lot of noise going around the internet, a lot of smear campaigns, etc. But just ask for their evidence. Just keep asking. Just keep asking for the sequential data. Just keep asking them, what is the effect of taking toe? What is the effect of leaving the heel? What is the effect of just not following the natural balance of what the horse has got? It's just so scarily shocking that the world thinks that they can do better than what the foot is showing them. So let's move forward together, folks. Let's respect that natural internal balance of the hoof and ensure that we are trimming in a way that truly supports that horse's health and well-being. We don't want footsore horses. We don't want laminitis-like symptoms. We don't want rotation. Please, can we put an end to it? It's all I see every single day of my life at the moment. I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully. I think I will. It's Mother's Day. If I'm not here, that's why. Keep going. You're doing amazing things. I love you all. This is important. Keep learning. Don't let anybody chop your horse's toes off. All right, my darlings. Take care now. Love you all. See ya.